All right, so now it's time to take a look at the Gen 3 Morav and talk about tagging him up with some stickers and paint and things like that. Because, right now it's just a little bit boring. This brings a little bit more interest into the character. But also, this is a vehicle, right? It looks like a robot, but it's actually a vehicle. Humans drive these things. And this Gen 3 is an actual police vehicle. So we want to put on the correct stickers to make sure it's in the right unit for what this is. These can also be emergency vehicles, rescue vehicles, things like that. But this particular one is a police vehicle. So let's see how we can create these stickers and the different ways that we can apply them inside a Substance Painter. All right. So there's a few different ways to do this. Let's go back F2 to our regular view. So the first way is just to paint on here. So I'm going to come up to my brushes. Let's just make a new layer, just a blank layer, right? Just like it's in Photoshop. I'm going to make a blank layer. And you see my brush is round, so we'll go up to our brushes, and these are all the different paint brushes we have. I can just grab this basic hard, like so, and I can start to paint right on the 3D surface. I also have options here for different types of brushes, right? Dirt spots. We can start to paint in dirt. We can paint in all kinds of things. Electricity, right? I mean, it gets really interesting. But what we want to do is just paint kind of decals, like so. For this, let's just call this one paint. And if we look at our brush, let's go back to that hard round brush like we would see in Photoshop. And we look at the layer. And then we look at the brush properties, which are at the top here. We have the size, we have the flow, we have the stroke, the spacing, rotation, angle jitter, everything else. But what is driving this brush is this alpha shape, right? So I can change the shape to anything I want. It could be a sticker that I make, an alpha that I make, whatever I want. So if we come back to alphas and we scroll down, it's fine. We do a Substance logo right there. So as soon as I click, look what happens. Whenever I click, it automatically adds that alpha to my brush right there. And then I can just click on here, left and right brackets scale. So left shrinks, just like Photoshop. Right brackets scale. I can hold down Alt. Actually, it's Control. Left mouse rotates. Control, right mouse scales in and out, and then just your mouse moves around. So I can just click, and that's it, right? I have paint. That's cool. Well, another way we can do this is with something called stencils, and they work on alphas as well. So we'll make a new layer, call this one stencil, and let's look at our properties. Same thing. We can paint in color, height, rough, everything right here. And we have this alpha, but this time, let's go back to our regular brush right there. And then we'll go back to our alphas, come back to that alpha. But this time, instead of my brush painting, I'm going to use a stencil. So I can grab this alpha and drag it into my stencil. And then now you see we get this little stencil here. So for stencil scale, with your brush, it's Control, left, and right. With the stencil, it's S for stencil, and S left mouse rotates, S right mouse scales, and S middle mouse pans. All right, so now I can line up my model where I want, hold down S, scale that down, S left mouse, I can rotate it where I want. I can rotate the model and scale that down some more. Then with my brush, you'll see wherever the white area is, I can paint, and I can't paint outside of the stencil either. So I can just paint like so. Pretty cool. All right, the third way, let's get rid of this stencil. Just click that out. It's gone. I could grab another stencil, paint with that on the same layer. We'll get rid of that. So the next way is to use, instead of a regular layer, is to use a fill layer. And the fill layer is basically going to treat this like your UV space. So we'll go back to F1, see our UV. And now we're going to make a solid, and that fills everything. We'll call this texture. And let's go to textures. And I'll just grab one of these hard surface shapes right here. So for this, we're going to do this different. On the paint, we added an alpha to our brush, we paint it. On the stencil, we added the alpha to the stencil, and then we paint it where the stencil. For this one, we get to translate our image wherever we want. So we have a fill, and then we'll come in here, and I'm going to grab one of these hard surface, maybe this thing, and I'll just drag it into base color. And you'll see it filled up my entire UV space, and it's also repeating. But I get this transforms handle now, so I can rotate, hold down shift to snap, hold down shift, and I can scale this down like so, right there. But you'll see it repeats everywhere. I don't want to repeat. I just want one. So inside of our UV wrap, it's on repeat. I'm going to put it to none. So I only have one now. Now I can zoom in here and I can place this texture wherever I want. So shift, holding constrains this evenly. No shift, you can move this wherever you want. And if I hold down control on any handle, then I can just scale it in an axis, right? All right, so let's put this in place. Hold down shift, scale this down. Maybe this thing needs to rotate, go in the shape of the head. All right, like so. But maybe I want a normal map to get the height information too. Anything that's in these purple textures is a normal. And we'll get into this when we get into damaging the Morav. So I can drag this into my normal as well. Now we got the normal detail. I could even drag this into my height, get a little bit of extra detail. And then when I translate this, it translates all of these channels together, which is really cool. Now the fourth way is we could add fonts in here. So let's try this one, because maybe I want to put police on here. And I don't want to make that inside of Photoshop and have to import. Or maybe I put a sticker on here and then later I want to change whatever it says. If I have to go back to Photoshop, I have to make a brand new sticker, import it back in, or I can come in here to alphas, again, alphas, and I'm going to look for font. We have text and we have font. The difference between the text and the font is this is actually editable text. This is basically an alpha, a mask, and I'll show you the difference. So let's make a new solid, call this font 1, and let's make it black or red, whatever, right? Whatever color you want. And if I come up to my layer now, and I grab one of these, so say maybe caution, and I drag this on, you'll see that as soon as I get near this layer, I get this little pop-up box. So I can either A, click on this solid and put it in either the base color, right, like so, and then I can move this around. But I can't edit this. This is just a mask. So let's undo that. Or I can grab this and put it to the side on this little one, and it will be an alpha, right? And then I can move that around again. And then we get that repeat and turn the repeat off. But this is basically just an alpha. I can't edit this. So let's do one more. Pull this down here, scale it just so we can have something on here. Scale that down. All right, so you get the kind of caution right there. But now I want to have editable text. Let's add a solid. We'll call this alpha, and then this we'll call font edit. All right, and this one's going to be black as well. We'll make this one green. We can tell the difference. Now that was a text, anything with text. But if we come up, there's also a font. There's not a lot. I wish there was more, but we'll find a font that we like, say like this one, and I'll drag this on and put it in the mask. But this one is just a fill. This one is a font. So if we select this and we come over here, look at this. Now we have editable text. So let's put this somewhere. Let's scale that down, hold shift. I'm going to turn off repeat to none. I'm going to rotate this up to here and place this where I want. We'll scale that down and I can place that where I want, like so. But say I want this to say police. I'm going to hold down my shift key for all caps. So now I can change the font and it updates. So if I ever need to update what I have written here, I can do that here instead of going back to Photoshop. I can go bold. We can control the size, the font. where it aligns, left, right, or center, right? The position inside of this little widget, we can flip it if we need to, right? So this is great. And with this as well, I should be able to mess with my bump. So let's go back to the solid and let's see if we can get our bump, our height to work. And it does, right? So now I can even raise my fonts up and it's all being driven by that font editable alpha, basically. I want to cut into the surface, then I pull it negative like so. I need to change color right here. I never have to go back to Photoshop and change the font color, rewrite what I have to do. It's right here, right? So this works out really well. So those are the what? 1, paintbrush, 2, stencil, texture, the font alpha, and then the font editable text. So these are ways that I'm going to approach actually tagging up and painting all the decals on the Morav. So next, we're going to get into actually making these inside of Photoshop, Illustrator, or whatever program you prefer.